I've spent over a decade working directly alongside commercial growers, extension specialists, and agricultural researchers. These aren't weekend hobbyists. These are lifelong professionals who've been reading soil and making planting decisions for 30, 40, 50 years. They do not get excited easily. So when I watch some of the most experienced growers I've ever known quietly change course on a planting decision they'd never seriously considered before I paid attention, I started asking questions. What I found is what this entire video is about. It's called the Paulownia tree. If you've never heard of it, that is not an accident. And I'm going to tell you exactly why in a few minutes. Here's what these lifelong farmers were seeing on their own land: a genuine premium hardwood used in high-end furniture, musical instruments, and marine construction, reaching full harvestable size in 5 to 10 years. Oak takes 50, Walnut takes 60. Peer-reviewed research documents growth of 10 to 20 feet in a single growing season. Not inches, feet. Cut it at harvest. The root system sends up new shoots in 90 days. Plant once. Harvest up to 7 times from the same root. I've worked alongside serious farmers my entire career. I have never seen anything shift opinion this fast among people this hard to impress. They had found something the internet buried under the wrong label for 50 years. Today we dug it out. I'll walk you through the complete story of what this tree is, why science breaks every rule of American hardwood farming, and the most critical thing you need to know before you plant your first one. Stay to the end. Section 8 covers the one mistake that gets people into real trouble with their state's agriculture department and exactly how to avoid it. Let's get into it. To understand why this tree is a secret, you first have to understand why it was hidden. Paulownia has been cultivated in China and East Asia for over 3,000 years. Historical records from 300 BC document its use for timber, medicine, and craftsmanship. In Japan, it was considered so precious that families planted one at the birth of a daughter. By the time she reached marrying age, that tree was harvested and carved into an elaborate wedding chest, one of the most prized possessions a family could pass down. That is how fast this tree grows. Fast enough to mark a human life. Here's where the American story gets interesting. In the 1830s and 40s, Chinese porcelain was shipped to the U.S. in wooden crates. The lightweight winged seeds of the Paulownia were used as packing material. When those crates cracked open at ports and rail yards along the eastern seaboard, the seeds scattered. Within decades, wild Paulownia groves had taken root along railway lines from Virginia to Ohio. By the 1970s, Japanese timber buyers had found them. Executives were flying light aircraft over rural America specifically to spot these groves and paying enormous sums for single premium logs to ship back to Japan, where domestic supply had been nearly exhausted. The American farming community barely blinked. Then came the problem. One species, Paulownia tomentosa, was classified as invasive by the USDA. And because most Americans couldn't tell one Paulownia species from another, the entire genus got buried under that label. Roughly 12 states put restrictions in place. The tree went from the tree of the future to that weed by the railroad. An extraordinary farming opportunity disappeared from the American conversation for 50 years, until the sterile hybrids changed everything. Here's the part that makes plant scientists stop mid-sentence. Paulownia doesn't just grow fast, it grows in a way that breaks the rules of what a hardwood tree is supposed to do. Researchers at peer-reviewed institutions are still actively studying exactly how it pulls this off. Here's what they've confirmed. First, the leaves. Young Paulownia grows enormous heart-shaped leaves over 12 inches across. These aren't just for shade, they act like solar panels, capturing far more light per square foot than the narrow leaves of oak, walnut, or most competing hardwoods. More light means more energy. More energy means faster growth, immediately. Second, the roots go deep. While most trees fight over the same shallow soil layer, Paulownia drives a taproot straight down, accessing water and nutrients other plants simply can't reach. That's why established trees handle summer heat and dry spells that would kill other species. Third, the coppicing mechanism. This is the part farmers talk about most. When you cut a Paulownia at harvest, The root system doesn't die. It stays fully alive underground. Within weeks, new shoots emerge from the stump. And because those shoots draw from a root system that's already years old and fully established, they grow faster than the original sapling did. Forestry research confirms coppice regrowth consistently outpaces first-year growth from seed. You're not starting over. You're launching from a running start. Massive light-capturing leaves, deep water access, a root system that regenerates at every harvest. That combination is why a 10-year-old Paulownia plantation looks like it's been growing for 40. It's not magic. It's biology most American landowners have never been told about. Let me put real numbers in front of you, because this is where the story stops being interesting and starts being important. Most landowners are growing oak, maple, or walnut. Beautiful, valuable trees. No argument there. But here's what the data actually says when you put them side by side with Paulownia. Oak grows 12 to 24 inches per year. Paulownia grows 10 to 15 feet per year. That's not a typo. Feet versus inches, same land, same American soil. Oak reaches harvestable size in 40 years. Walnut in 60. Paulownia, 5 to 10. Now here's the comparison that stops people cold. The wood itself. Paulownia is a genuine hardwood, not a pine, not a poplar, not a fast-growing softwood that crumbles under stress. It weighs 17 to 21 pounds per cubic foot. Red oak, 39 to 41. That means Paulownia timber is roughly half the weight of oak, yet carries a higher strength-to-weight ratio than most hardwoods at your local lumber yard. Engineers call it the aluminum of the woods, and this last one will surprise you. Paulownia's ignition point, the temperature at which it catches fire, is 420 to 430 degrees Celsius. The average hardwood ignites at 220 to 225. Paulownia is nearly twice as fire-resistant as the wood most American homes and barns are built from right now. That's not marketing. That's peer-reviewed material science. Here is the real reason lifelong farmers are making this switch. Not a get-rich pitch. These are documented revenue categories reported by researchers, agricultural economists, and working growers from active Paulownia operations, 7 of them, from a single tree. Stream 1, timber, the anchor. After 5 to 10 years, your Paulownia reaches harvestable size, lightweight, dimensionally stable, in active demand for furniture, construction, and specialty manufacturing. That's your primary payout. And because of coppicing, it's not your last one. Stream 2, carbon credits. Paulownia sequesters carbon at a documented rate well above average tree species. Established plantations qualify for verified carbon offset programs. Growers report $8 to $20 per tree annually, varying by registry and regional pricing. Stream 3, livestock fodder. Paulownia leaves contain roughly 16% protein comparable to alfalfa. Each tree produces up to 80 kilograms of dry leaves per year. Peer-reviewed research confirms them as a documented substitute for commercial animal feed. Stream 4, honey production. Paulownia produces large nectariferous flowers all spring. Studies on intercropping found 1 hectare of mature trees supports honey production at levels comparable to dedicated nectar crops, a ready-made beekeeping asset. Stream 5, biochar and biomass. Wood thinnings and harvest waste convert directly into biochar, a high-value soil amendment or biomass fuel. Current market rates run roughly $40 to $60 per ton. Stream 6, intercropping. The canopy is open. The roots go deep, not wide. That means you can plant grains, herbs, and vegetables between rows throughout the entire growth cycle. The land keeps generating income every year, not just at harvest. Stream 7, value-added products, musical instruments, surfboards, specialty furniture. Finished Paulownia wood commands prices that multiply raw timber value several times over. 1 tree, 7 documented income categories. No other single planning decision in American agriculture offers that stack. Now I need to stop and be straight with you. The number one mistake people make after discovering Paulownia is they get excited, search online, find cheap seeds or seedlings, and plant the wrong thing. In some states, that mistake carries real legal consequences. Here's what you need to know before you spend a single dollar. Danger 1, the species trap. There are multiple species in the Paulownia genus. Only one Paulownia tomentosa is on the USDA invasive species list. But because it shares a name and similar appearance with its non-invasive cousins, the confusion online is everywhere. Connecticut has an outright ban. Roughly 12 states have some form of restriction. Plant tomentosa in a restricted state whether you know the rules or not, and you are legally exposed. The species you want are Paulownia elongata and Paulownia fortunei, along with their sterile hybrid clones. Not listed as invasive anywhere in the world, not in the US, not in Europe, not in China. That distinction matters enormously, and most online content either doesn't know it or won't say it. Danger 2, buying wild seeds. One rule, no exceptions. Never plant Paulownia from wild collected or unverified seeds. Reputable operations use tissue-cultured sterile clones trees, biologically designed not to spread through seed dispersal. Wild seeds carry legal risk and unpredictable growth characteristics. Danger 3, neglecting year 1 and 2. Paulownia is drought-tolerant once established, but during the first 2 growing seasons before the taproot reaches depth, it needs consistent water. Skip this step and you lose trees. The investment in early irrigation is what protects everything that comes after it. Before you plant anything, look up your state's current regulations on Paulownia. Laws change. What's allowed in one county may not be allowed in the next. This tree rewards the prepared. It punishes the careless. Here's the part of this story that doesn't get told enough. While most of America was ignoring this tree or spraying it with herbicide, a small group of people who actually worked land for a living quietly figured out what it could do. In the 1980s, the University of Kentucky and University of Tennessee Extension Services helped form the American Paulownia Association, a coalition of growers, lumber dealers, and researchers documenting the tree's value as a domestic crop. Plantations were forming across the Southeast. Farmers were calling it the tree of the future. Then the invasive classification happened. The conversation went cold. But one person kept going. Former President Jimmy Carter, a Georgia peanut farmer his entire life, planted 15 acres of Paulownia on his property in Plains, Georgia in the 1990s. Not for politics, because he believed it was the right answer for rural American farmers and for the land itself. At 95 years old, he personally picked up a chainsaw and cut one of those trees down himself. The timber was milled and handed to master luthiers across the country, who crafted 12 stringed instruments for the Jimmy Carter Legacy Collection, auctioned in 2021. Proceeds went to Farm Aid and the Boys and Girls Club of Georgia. He grew it. He harvested it. He showed exactly what it could become. A 95-year-old former president running a chainsaw on a tree he planted to make a point about sustainable farming. That tells you everything about what this tree means to the people who actually understand it. Today, organizations like World Tree are managing thousands of acres of Paulownia across North and Latin America. And in July 2025, Paulownia lumber officially earned a Class A fire rating, the highest classification for building materials with no chemical treatment required. The comeback is real, and it's just getting started. All right, you've made it this far, which tells me you're serious. Let's get practical. 4 things, in order, before you plant your first Paulownia. Step 1, check your state first. Before you spend $1 on a sapling, go to your state's Department of Agriculture website and search Paulownia. Regulations differ by state and by county. 5 minutes now prevents a much bigger problem later. Do this first, every time. Step 2, buy tissue-cultured clones only. You're looking for Paulownia elongata, Paulownia fortunei, or a certified sterile hybrid of those two. Propagated through tissue culture, biologically consistent, disease-free, non-invasive by design. Expect to pay $15 to $30 per sapling from a reputable U.S. nursery. That price is not a red flag. It reflects the quality of the propagation process. Bargain saplings from unverified sellers are where every problem starts. Step 3. Choose your site with care. Full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours daily. Well-drained soil with a pH around 6.0. Avoid low-lying areas that collect standing water. Avoid heavy clay. A gently sloping south-facing spot is ideal. Even a quarter acre of suitable ground can support a meaningful planting. Step 4. The year 1 coppice cut. Plant in spring after your last frost. Water consistently through the first 2 growing seasons is non-negotiable for root establishment. Then in that first winter, after the sapling goes dormant, cut it back to the ground. It sounds drastic. It is the single most important thing you can do for timber quality. That established root system sends up one straight, fast-growing leader in spring. That leader becomes your harvest trunk. 4 steps. That's the foundation. Remember the Japanese tradition I told you about at the start? Families planting a Paulownia at the birth of a daughter, harvesting it when she came of age, building something lasting from it, a chest, a piece of furniture, an heirloom, something that said, "We thought about you before you were old enough to ask." That tradition is 3,000 years old. Here's why it matters to you right now. The most painful thing about conventional hardwood planting is the timeline. Plant an oak today at 70, and the honest truth is you will never harvest it. It becomes a gift to a generation you may never meet. Beautiful, but disconnected from your own hands and your own work. Paulownia breaks that equation entirely. A tree you plant this spring can reach harvestable size within your own decade. You can watch it go from a 2-foot sapling to a towering harvestable hardwood in a time frame that is yours. Mill it, sell it, craft from it, or simply stand next to it and know what your land is capable of producing. And when that root stays in the ground after harvest, which it does, for up to 7 more cycles, you haven't just grown a tree. You've planted a permanent productive asset, one that improves the ground beneath it. Research documents increased organic matter, stronger soil structure, and reduced erosion with every passing year. The land you leave behind will be measurably healthier than the land you started with. Most farming depletes. Paulownia restores. There's a reason the oldest farming cultures on Earth built traditions around this tree. They understood something we are only now remembering. The best time to plant was 30 years ago. The second best time is right now while your hands can still do it. So let's bring this full circle. A tree that grows 20 feet in a single season, regrows from its own stump, resists fire at nearly twice the temperature of every hardwood at your local lumber yard, produces 7 documented income streams from a single planting, buried for 50 years under the wrong species name, the wrong classification, 50 years of institutional indifference. That's over now. You know what it is. You know which species to buy. You know what to avoid. You know the 4 steps to start. And you know that a former president of the United States grew 15 acres of it on his own farm in Georgia because he believed in what it could do for American landowners. The only thing left is the decision. Not a big one, not a risky one. 1 sapling, right soil. The right state was confirmed with a 5-minute search. That's all it takes to begin. That's how every great grove in history started. 1 tree, 1 season, 1 person who decided not to wait. If this video gave you something real today, share it. Send it to someone with land who's been wondering what to do with it. Then subscribe, because the next video covers the year-by-year management calendar, and that's the one that turns everything you just learned into a plan you can actually follow. The best time to plant was 30 years ago. The second best time is this spring.